Number 4, I will pick the best and leave the rest. So if the stock looks like electrocardiogram, then you don't want to trade it. And it's kind of amazing on Twitter or X now. There's somebody that's interested in my methodology, and you can tell he's trying to learn it. It's exciting to help him out. But a lot of the charts that he's pulling up are just electrocardiograms, and so he needs to focus on a setup that'll stick out like a sore thumb. That's just like a perfect little trend, acceleration, persistency, and all these things that I preach every week. And I'm going to get to why people do that in 1 second. So here's the NBIS, and the big blue arrow was pointing higher. It was accelerating higher. It was persisting higher. And by the way, one thing I was just thinking about is like, well, Dave, you're kind of beating the dead horse in this one winner. But if you go in and look at the losing stocks that I picked, they all had a lot of these characteristics. They just didn't work out, okay? And this one hasn't hit the IPT yet, so let's not consider just yet. But this is what I saw at the time, and things change, right? All predictions about the future, and a lot of stuff can happen between now and then. But anyway, nice persistency, and then a fairly orderly pullback. And that was so far so good. So these are from 2019, and these are pretty cool looking stocks. And you can see big blue arrows pointing higher here. You had a gap in the trend when it began to take off. It accelerated higher, which is a good thing. And it's also has some persistency in the moves, meaning that it tends to go up bar after bar. So that was a pretty good looking setup there. Here's another one, PLMR, going back a few years, kind of a double top knockout look to it. Big blue arrow. For the most part, it's worked its way higher for a long time. And it had a bit of a slow start, but then it began to accelerate higher and then began to persist higher. And as a general statement, it tends to trade cleanly. Yet another TKO. This is a really good looking one here. Again, what do we have? We have the big blue arrow. And before that, it was kind of all over the place. It had worked its way higher, but then it began to accelerate higher and persist higher. And all these great things that I talk about. And you had a nice TKO bar to the downside. Now, I'm often asked, it's like, well, Dave, this stock used to be wide and loose. Why do you like it? Well, because it kind of got its act together. You can see in more recent times, it's accelerated higher very nicely. And by the way, you want a stock that's doing this, not doing that, okay? It is acceleration. Like sometimes you'll have a stock that'll go straight up and then it'll kind of roll over a little bit and set up as a pullback. You don't want that. You want that accelerating higher, kind of like the parabolic looking curve to it. But notice back here, it was kind of wide and loose and kind of all over the place. And people are saying, well, Dave, why would you recommend this stock? Because it used to be wide and loose. Well, unless you have a mountain of overhead supply and the stock begins to get its act together, keep in mind that the personalities change in this stock. A lot of people probably got washed out during that wide and loose base, tax loss selling, God forbid, death, okay, divorce, or who knows what else. People buy and sell stocks for a variety of reasons. Remember that. So it wasn't great back then, but then it began to improve. Here's an IPO, nice little TKO move within a pullback, and nice little trend higher. That arrow should be blue. Nice little gap higher too. So this is a stock that looks like it's going places, and it was an IPO. And it was also coming off of all-time highs. I'm a big fan of IPOs making all-time highs, like the NBIS did earlier today. Anyway, notice that it kind of came public. It wasn't great, but IPOs sometimes come public and go and bottom out. I don't consider that necessarily a bad thing. You don't want to rush out and buy them while they're bottoming out. I think that's a bad idea. Unless they bottom out for a long, long, long time, you get something like a bow tie. And then it became much, much, much better and a nice trend higher. And again, here's another one, fairly new issue, big blue arrow. All-time highs here. Now, one thing that I think is a good idea is when in doubt, take the chart out. So draw your lines, draw your arrows, and then drop the chart out. And you can see that looks like a big cup and handle with a pullback on the right side, obviously. So that's one little trick.